This video could have been titled Before You Submit to Someone Else, Submit to Yourself, but I'm going to talk a lot about kink. I'm going to talk about kink a lot in this video, but it's because this video is about how the power dynamics we explore with others are often mirrors of the ones we haven't explored within ourselves. If we've been waiting for a Prince Charming or for someone else to come rescue us, how can we learn to rescue ourselves while still getting that princess treatment that we desire from others at the same time? So, I've hovered around the kink community for a couple of years now. My first interaction with kink was with a manager of mine during my freshman year of college. Weird, right? Anyway, he told me he was dominant and he shared a book with me called Urban Tantra: Sacred Sex for the 21st Century by Barbara Corrales. The book itself gave me a deeply misconstrued sense of what Tantra means. A lot of modern spiritualists define the word as spiritual sex or sex magic, when it's really a diverse Tantra itself is really a diverse set of esoteric traditions and practices aimed at achieving spiritual liberation, expanded consciousness, or union with the divine. Now, can sex be one of these traditions or practices? Yes, but there's way more to Tantra than sex. But that's such a tangent. That's such a tangent. Anyway, after that interaction with the manager, I got sort of interested in kink. I'd watch videos about kink and BDSM. I would reread parts of that book over and over again, even though I didn't have anyone to practice that stuff with at the time. And I generally asked my manager a lot of questions about kink and BDSM. By the way, if you don't know what BDSM means, it is an acronym that stands for bondage and discipline, dominance and submission, sadism and masochism. It refers to a wide range of consensual practices, fantasies, and role plays that involve power exchange, control, pain, and or restraint in the sexual context or erotic context. Each component can be explored separately or in combination. In the context of BDSM, a kink is any sexual interest, desire, or activity that goes beyond what's considered vanilla, i.e., conventional or mainstream. Kinks can include a wide range of fantasies, fetishes, and practices, many of which may involve power dynamics, sensation play, role play, or unusual scenarios. Anyway, after this manager introduced me to kink and BDSM, I came across the dating profile of a man that self-proclaimed himself as a dominant a few weeks after I learned about dominance and submission. I met up with him one night and we played. We did some basic kink stuff, and then I figured that we weren't really compatible for long-term stuff, but we could be friends. I think what turned me off was that he was into having a harem of women. Like, he had a bunch of submissive women who couldn't play with or date anyone except him or with each other. I felt like that was some bullcrap. But from that experience, I gathered that I wanted to have some sort of DS dynamic with someone. Years passed and I couldn't really find anyone that felt really compatible with me at that time. And at the time I was in the middle of nowhere in a conservative southern college town, so I only came across white men with a race fetish for the most part. But I stayed involved in the community. I'd go around to dungeons and parties and strike up conversation with kinksters and ask them why they did what they do. The people who were into submission, their answers always intrigued me. They'd say things like, I like relinquishing control, or I like not having to think for a while and go into subspace, while dominant's answers always seem so sadistic, which isn't a bad thing if that's your kind of thing. It was especially the doms that had the harems or showed out at parties that had more sadistic answers. And that's what made me think I wasn't inherently dominant. I wasn't a sadist. I didn't like inflicting pain on others. But then I learned from another manager. By the way, if I had a nickel for every time I had a manager that was into BDSM, and being a dom, I'd have 2 nickels, which is not a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. I learned from another manager who was into dominance and submission that they like being in control. They like disciplining, they like disciplining their submissive and training their submissive to be or do better. I like this idea of dominance, that there could be someone that is training you or disciplining you to do better. And I could go more and more into my personal thoughts on dominance and submission, but I just wanted to provide some sort of foundation on what we're going to be talking about today and why. I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about what dominance and submission looks like, or has to look like. We can name the top culprit of this misconception for the 21st century, 50 Shades of Grey. But we know what stereotypical BDSM looks like. Here, lately for me, I'm contemplating this idea that all is one. There's a Hermetic principle that says the all is mind and the universe is mental. And to some degree, I do believe that this is a useful idea in the world today. That there is no good and bad. And if there was a good and bad, we're meant to experience them both to explore this duality and come back to oneness. And another form of duality that we're experiencing, or that we experience if we're looking at the world in this way, is the idea of self and of the other. We're constantly trying to make sense of the other for ourselves. And one thing that can be taught with this idea of oneness is that there is no true difference between the self and the other. When I think of this idea of unifying the self with the other, unifying the inner world with the outer world, is that I like the idea that I can grow a seed of something within me and watch it grow into the world of the other or the outer world. I think there are many examples of the outer world affecting the inner world. For example, COVID-19 lockdowns affecting everyone's mental health, or any war happening on the global theater is affecting how we think humanity is going and our place in it. Social media being so important to how individuals see the world, and many more examples of outer world affecting the inner world. But it's pretty rare to see examples of how the inner world affects the outer world. And the true compass and teacher for this is our personal self and our personal inner world. There are very few lessons that can be taught about your inner world or your authentic self through the lens of another person. But sometimes hearing other people's stories can help you find your own story and your own method for your own inner world. So for me, something that I've been contemplating on this topic of dualities is the idea of dominant and submissive duality. And I'm still trying to learn the lesson of unity between these two, but the best way that I've put it is that I have to surrender to the reality that I must take actions and have some sort of control over what I want my life to look and feel like. That I must surrender to the inner dominant in me in order to have the moments where I can relinquish control and just enjoy the situation that my inner dominant created for me. I think that if you're someone yearning for a DS dynamic, on either side of the coin, whether you want to be a dominant or the submissive, you must first discipline and surrender to yourself. This could mean different things to different people. A parable that comes to mind, or something that I've heard a specific spiritual teacher take as a parable, is the idea in the Christian Bible, honor thy mother and thy father, which in her way of understanding this parable means to honor the Father of spirit and enlightenment and out-of-body divine experiences while honoring the mother of the earth and your body and your bodily needs and desires. It means not to get wrapped up in either sides of this coin and to see a third way, a neutral way of living. So when I talk about disciplining and surrendering to yourself, I mean becoming aware of your carnal desires and working to achieve them sustainably. For me, I deeply desire losing weight for health and aesthetic reasons, and if I just settled into the divine consciousness of I'm perfect the way that I am and that I need to love myself as I am, then I would be missing the carnal need to lose weight. And then, if I hate my current self so much for looking the way it looks now, then I'd be ignoring the truth and the beauty of my whole self, and I wouldn't be operating from a place of oneness because I'd be so separated from my current self. Anyway, this all might sound like mumbo jumbo to you, but I'm saying all of this to say that there is no real difference between the inner and outer world at a higher truth perspective, and that if we want a dominant or submissive person to come into our life, so that we can experience a power exchange in our outer world, we must first find the counterpart that we're yearning for outside of our body within our body. I'm going to repeat this. But I'm saying that there is no real difference between the inner and outer world at a higher truth perspective. And that if we want a dominant person or a submissive person to come into our life so that we can experience a power exchange relationship in our outer world, we must first find the counterpart that we're yearning for outside of our body within our body. So, for example, let's say that you want to find a dominant partner in your life. But to be disciplined by someone else, you must be disciplined by yourself. No dominant person, no matter if they call themselves a brat tamer or not, wants to work with someone that has zero discipline in their life. Because this means to them that you don't value discipline. So why would they work with you if discipline is all that they offer? If the only thing the dominant offers is discipline, and you don't value discipline by having zero discipline in your life, why would they come to you? So you must first find the disciplinarian within you and become connected to them and start listening to them. And there's a difference between your inner disciplinarian and your inner critic or your inner judge. Your inner disciplinarian is a gentle pusher, the voice that makes you first recognize all of the positive things that come with pushing through the negative. It may take a while to listen to this voice if you're not purposely practicing it, but eventually your inner disciplinarian can become louder and more significant the more we lend it our ears. While your inner critic is the voice that's loud and insecure and constantly thinking about what other people think about you or how they might perceive you. Looking for your inner dominant can feel taxing, especially if you're someone that doesn't constantly exude or use dominance. Dominance doesn't have to be sadistic and hard. It can sound motherly and gentle. There's even mommy doms or pleasure doms. But if your dominance expresses itself as sadistic, then how can you use this sadism to please yourself while keeping yourself and others safe? How can you consensually and with the most risk awareness that you can, how can you nourish your sadistic dom? Anyway, for another example, let's say that you're someone that is yearning for a submissive person to enter your life so that you can be dominant in the one pairing. But to experience another person's surrender, you must surrender to yourself, your current conditions, and your inner yearnings. No submissive person, no matter if they're a complete service sub, will sit around and wait for you to anxiously second guess your every move and request for them. They want someone that is resigned and unflinching in their understandings of their desires and what they want their life to look like and their relationships to look like. Now, I'm not talking about being a rigid perfectionist, dropping everything and every relationship that isn't perfect in their life, but instead someone who sees the fertile soil in their mind and in their world to grow things that feel possible and good to them while still honoring and respecting other people and the outer world. The difference between a rigid perfectionist and someone that gardens their life into the way that they want is that rigid perfectionists will force things to become the way that they desire it instead of the gardener who finds fertile grounds and fertile relationships that hold the potential and similar desire of what they want out of their life and compatibility in what both parties are capable of doing to get there. For me, I've ran away from my inner dom for years. I try to make myself smaller and more agreeable so that I can feel valuable and understood by others. Even as the CEO of my own startup, I was once rejected for expressing my personal desires, and then I got so scared of doing anything that jeopardized the mission of the company again, I basically became entirely reliant on how people saw this company. Instead of being reliant on my inner compass and in my inner personal truth, I became so obsessed and inundated with the truths of others. Now, I'm listening to and honoring my inner dominant. My inner dominant has given me a vision of the phases of my life that it wants to put me through to be at my ideal self sustainably, and I must learn to honor that voice in my head instead of trying to honor the voice of other people or what professionals say is important. Not that I'm not going to continue to hear professionals out, but what I should be doing with my mind, my life, my body, my emotions, etc., I need to start listening to myself and my body for what it desires to do and be. Like, for example, I've been trying to do juice fasting to lose weight, and it worked fine, but I found myself deeply craving warm and savory things. And because of this, I ended up eating a lot of fatty, warm, savory foods that I could find quickly at restaurants instead of cooking healthy, savory foods at home and having a plan and permission to eat them. Even though I learned from others about juice fasting, I had to learn to listen to myself and train myself on intuitive eating. Now I'm doing something called, intuitive eating, which is backed by researchers, still others, but scientists, and I love science. And now I'm experiencing weight loss again, but it's sustainable because I'm not counting my calories or what time I'm eating or how much of a macro I'm eating or what kind of food I'm eating or any of that. I just prioritize whole plant-based foods while eating when I'm hungry and stopping when I feel satisfied. I had to learn to discipline myself in hearing my inner cues of hunger and satiation instead of surrendering to my every whim of the thought of food making me go eat something. Someone else may have the journey of being an orthorexic and must learn to listen to their inner cues of the body and surrender to the cravings guiding them in their system in order to get the nutrients that they need when their body specifically calls out for it. I also find that I want attention and love attention. But if I don't pay attention to myself, how can I expect someone else to pay me attention? If I'm so busy desiring the attention of others, that's going to come back to me as the others wanting the attention of someone else too. That any attention that I shine on someone else will be reflected onto somebody else. When I pay attention to myself, I will notice more attention paid to me. Does this make sense? Anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Comment down below if I've been making sense this whole time. Yeah, and yeah, please like, comment, and subscribe, and maybe share this video with someone if this resonated with you at all. Yeah, my name is Joyous. I forgot to say that at the beginning, but it's on my channel name. Bye.